story I'm about to tell is one I witnessed firsthand, a journey that began with high hopes and dreams in a small Nigerian village and took us to the bustling heart of Lagos. This is the story of Laura, a girl who wanted to escape her small town life. She always told us her dreams were too big for the village. She needed something more. Laura was one of those rare people, born with ambition etched in her soul. She was restless. She was not happy with the slow, simple life of our village. She wanted more than just helping her mother carry water from the stream, or cooking over a fire while smoke filled her eyes. In our village, people worked hard, but life was basic. Most folks grew food, tended animals, and made simple crafts. We gathered every season to celebrate the harvest, drumming and dancing under the stars. But Laura wanted something different, something exciting. She longed for city lights, tall buildings, the noise, and the opportunities she'd heard so much about. She saved money for a long time, putting away every small coin she could find. She was determined to go. When she finally saved enough money to move to Lagos, everyone in the village gathered to see her off. Her mother's eyes were red from crying, but she tried to smile. Her mother hugged her tight, her father patted her back, and her little brothers clung to her legs. Laura promised to write and visit soon. She left with little more than her clothes and a heart full of dreams. But Lagos wasn't what she expected. The days in the city were hard. The city was loud, busy, and expensive. Every day, money slipped through her fingers faster than she could count. She paid for a tiny room in a crowded neighborhood where the walls were thin and the noise never stopped. Food cost more than she had thought, and every meal was another dent in her savings. Soon, she was down to just a few coins, not nearly enough to pay her rent or buy more food. Desperate, Laura started looking for work. But finding a job in Lagos wasn't easy, especially for a newcomer. She would walk from one office to another, hoping someone would hire her. One day, she saw a flyer that promised quick and easy work, no experience needed. The pay seemed good, almost too good. But Laura didn't have any other choice. She went to the address on the flyer and met a man who introduced himself as Mr. Kola. "Ah, my sister. You dey lucky. I just dey look for person like you," Mr. Kola said, his smile wide like he won the lottery. Mr. Kola promised her a job as a shop assistant. He explained that to secure the job, she only needed to pay a small fee for the registration process. Laura cut her eye at him, but Mr. Kola assured her that it was a normal thing in Lagos. With hope in her heart, she handed over her last money. Mr. Kola took it with a smile and told her to come back the next day to start work. When Laura returned the next day, the shop was empty. The man was gone, and the shop looked like it hadn't been open for days. She asked around and learned the truth: she had been scammed. She felt crushed, realizing that her last money was gone, taken by a stranger who had only seen her desperation. Lagos Day show her pepper. Now, with no money, no food, and nowhere to turn, Laura felt more lost than ever. Hunger Day bite her like mosquito for Harmattan season. The big city that once seemed so bright now felt cold and unfriendly. She spent her days wandering the streets, searching for a sign or some kind of help. It was during one of these days, feeling tired and hopeless, that she remembered a story she'd heard back in the village. Her grandmother had often spoken of a wise Babalawo, a man who could see things others couldn't, who gave guidance to those in need. With nothing to lose, Laura found her way to the Babalawo. He was an old man with deep lines on his face and eyes that seemed to look straight into her soul. She explained her troubles, her losses, and her dreams. The Babalawo listened quietly and then spoke in a calm voice, telling her, "God's creations will lead you to your destiny." Laura didn't understand what he meant, but he told her to watch for signs, a raven by day and a dove by night. He said they would guide her. At first, Lara wasn't sure if she believed him. But then strange things began to happen. One day, as she walked through a crowded market, she realized her purse was missing. Her heart sank. She had nothing left, and now even her few belongings were gone. Just then, a large raven swooped down from the sky and landed right in front of her, cawing loudly. It looked at her with sharp eyes, then hopped down a narrow alleyway as if telling her to follow. With no other choice, Lara followed the raven. It led her to a tiny, hidden shop she had never noticed before. Inside she found charms, dusty relics, and an old man with one milky eye who seemed to know she was coming. He handed her a small, carved amulet for luck and said, "Sometimes, losing something is the way to find what matters." He also gave her a little money, just enough to buy food for a few days. She thanked him, feeling a strange sense of protection, as if the raven had truly led her to safety. She left the shop feeling strange, but a bit more hopeful. For the first time in a long time, she felt she was not alone. But life in Lagos didn't become easier. As the days passed, her troubles kept coming. Lara kept searching for jobs with hope in her heart, though each opportunity seemed to vanish before she could hold on to it. The city was full of promises that faded like smoke. She would get to an interview, only to be told that the position had been filled, or that they needed experience she didn't have. The jobs that sounded real often turned out to be scams, and the ones that seemed within reach would disappear overnight. Her hope was thin, like fabric pulled and stretched until it nearly tore. One afternoon, as she walked along a busy road, weaving between the crowds and vendors, a woman caught her eye. She wore a long, colorful shawl wrapped around her shoulders, woven with bold patterns of blue, yellow, and red. Her eyes were sharp, almost as if she could see into Lara's thoughts. She beckoned to Lara, who hesitated but felt drawn in by the woman's strange presence. "Are you lost, child?" the woman asked in a voice that felt both familiar and foreign. Before Lara could respond, the woman reached into her shawl and pulled out a single, bright red feather. She handed it to Lara, who took it slowly, unsure of what it meant. "Shine your eye well, my Pekin," the woman said, her voice low and serious. In Lagos, not everything is what it seems. There are those who look like friends, but they only want to deceive. They'll show you open doors that lead nowhere, promises that will drain you. Lara looked down at the feather as she listened. The color was as bright as blood, a warning as clear as the sky above. The woman's words sent a chill through her, and suddenly she remembered the raven's intense gaze from that day in the market. She lifted her gaze to ask the woman what she meant, but the woman had already melted into the crowd, disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. Lara tucked the feather carefully into her pocket, realizing that Lagos was a place where she would need to tread carefully, like stepping through a forest full of hidden thorns. The feather became her reminder that in this city, not everything could be trusted, especially the people who seemed too eager to help. Each morning, she would wake up with an emptiness gnawing at her stomach, sharp and unforgiving. Days passed where she ate nothing more than a piece of bread or a handful of leftover rice. Her once energetic steps grew slow, and her bones began to ache under the weight of her hunger. The bustling sounds of Lagos, once exciting and full of possibility, now seemed overwhelming, almost taunting. She moved like a ghost through the streets, her vision sometimes blurring, the colors of the city fading. One evening, as the streetlights cast their weak glow, Lara's body finally gave up. She stumbled to a nearby park bench, her legs shaking, her hands gripping the edge as her head spun. Before she could make sense of it, her world went dark, and she collapsed onto the bench, her cheek resting against the cold wood. After what felt like an eternity, she stirred to the sound of a gentle cooing, soft and soothing. She blinked her eyes open and saw a delicate white dove perched on her shoulder, its round eyes watching her with an almost human tenderness. For a moment, Laura felt a strange calm, as if the bird was sent to her, a sign she desperately needed. The dove tilted its head, fluffed its feathers, and gave a gentle flap, as if encouraging her to follow. Weary but curious, she pulled herself up and, leaning on the bench, followed the bird as it glided down a dimly lit, narrow street. The dove led her to a hidden door at the bottom of a steep staircase, almost invisible beneath a faded sign. She hesitated, but the bird cooed softly, perched just beside the entrance, and Laura felt a spark of trust. She pushed open the door and stepped into a dimly lit underground clinic. The smell of herbs and incense wrapped around her, warm and comforting, unlike anything in the harsh city above. In the shadows, an older woman with a headscarf and wise eyes approached. Her name was Mama Olu. She moved slowly, deliberately, her presence filling the room with calm. Her fingers brushed Lara's forehead, and she clucked her tongue, her voice gentle but knowing. "My child," she said softly, "life can be hard, but it never forgets to give back when the time is right." Mama Olu offered Laura a small cup filled with a warm, earthy-tasting liquid that made her whole body feel light, as if a gentle warmth was spreading through her veins. She mixed herbs in her hands, whispering words of comfort as she placed a balm on Lara's temples. Laura felt herself drifting into a calm state, her muscles loosening, her breathing steadying. As she finished the treatment, Mama Olu looked deep into Lara's eyes. "Life will take what it must," she said with a soft smile, "but it also returns what you're willing to give." Lara nodded, the words settling in her heart like a seed ready to grow. She thanked Mama Olu with a voice barely above a whisper, feeling the weight of her journey fall from her shoulders. When Laura stepped out of the clinic, the city lights seemed a little brighter, the air a little warmer. She felt as though the dove had led her not only to healing but to a new beginning, giving her the strength to face whatever lay ahead. Lara's hardships continued, but she began to see signs everywhere, the raven that watched her from lampposts and the dove that appeared when she was most in need. She learned to listen to these creatures, following them as they led her through her journey. One night, Lara was forced out of her small rented room. The landlord, a stern woman with hard eyes and a thick head wrap, had given her too many warnings already. Lara's payment was 2 weeks late, and this time, no amount of pleading could buy her any more time. She packed her few belongings, some clothes, a small tin of dried food, and a beaded necklace from her mother. With nowhere else to go, she stepped out into the dark, humid night, the sounds of Lagos still buzzing all around her. She wandered aimlessly through narrow, crowded streets. Her feet grew sore, and her spirit felt heavy. Finally, she sank down onto a cracked, cold curb, her belongings huddled around her like silent companions. She wrapped her arms around her knees and stared at the empty road, wondering how things had come to this. As she sat there in despair, a soft fluttering sound broke the silence. A white dove landed beside her, its feathers gleaming softly in the streetlight. It tilted its head, its dark eyes meeting hers as if it had been looking for her all along. "Not all homes have walls," she heard in her mind. The words echoed in her mind, strange yet comforting, and she felt a warmth that stirred something deep inside her, like an old memory of being safe and held. The dove spread its wings and fluttered down a small, winding side street. Lara hesitated, but the bird turned back, giving her a look as if to say, "Come, follow me." She stood up, hoisting her belongings over her shoulder, and followed the dove, drawn by a strange trust. The bird led her through narrow alleys and across silent courtyards until they reached an old, faded house tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Vines climbed over its walls, glowing faintly in the moonlight, as if lit by their own gentle magic. Wild plants with strange, glowing flowers lined the path, casting an otherworldly light on the steps. The house looked like it had come from a dream, a place untouched by the city's noise and chaos. Just as Laura approached, the door creaked open, and an elderly woman stepped out. She had a soft, wise face framed by silver-gray braids and wore a flowing wrapper that trailed slightly on the ground. Her eyes were warm, filled with a kindness that seemed to reach out and wrap around Laura like a comforting blanket. Without a single question, the woman extended her hand, beckoning Laura inside. "I've been waiting for a lost soul," the woman said softly, her voice soft like a lullaby. Laura felt her eyes prick with tears as she stepped inside. The house was simple but full of warmth. There were soft mats on the floor, a small fire glowing in the corner, and the scent of herbs filled the air. She felt her weariness slip away, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't felt in ages. That night, as she lay on a soft mat with a warm blanket, Laura realized that home could be found in the kindness of strangers, in the gentle touch of someone who cared. From that day on, Laura's life changed small. Finally, as the days passed, Laura felt something shift inside her. She remembered her family, her village, the simple life she had left behind. The old woman, Mama Olu, took care of her and taught her some small skills. Laura then began to help Mama Olu sell herbs and small remedies. She saved small money and was able to plan her next move. And with a heart full of newfound wisdom and enough money saved, she decided to visit her family back in the village. When she returned to her village, everyone gathered to welcome her back. Her family was overjoyed, and they threw a feast in her honor. There was jollof rice, roasted yams, and spicy stew. The fire crackled, and the smell of home filled the air. She sat with her mother, father, and brothers, feeling the warmth of their love. That night, as she looked around at the people who truly mattered, she realized her dreams were still alive, but they had changed. Lagos had taught her strength, but it was here, with her family, that she truly felt at peace. Laura realized that every hardship she faced in Lagos prepared her for a new purpose. She'll share her stories and inspire others to dream big without forgetting where they came from. The raven and dove appear one last time, circling overhead, as if to bless her homecoming. From this story we learn that home isn't a physical location, it's the love and memories that we carry within us. True belonging comes from the relationships and bonds that give us strength. We also learn about resilience. By reconnecting to your roots and values, you will find the courage to persist, even when the odds are against you. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Drop a comment below and tell me what was your favorite part of today's folktale. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching.